The stars looked like tiny pin pricks of light against the endless black of space. Captain Job Park sat in his command chair, fingers lightly touching the armrest of the UES Thunderbolt. Everything was quiet, too quiet. He remembered the briefing from 3 days ago. The holographic display had shown a massive red cloud representing the incoming Krell fleet, 1,000 ships. The number seemed impossible to fight against, but here he was, the only thing standing between those ships and the human colony of New Hope. New Hope wasn't just another settlement. It was home to almost 2 million people, farmers, engineers, children, families who had traveled across light years to build a new life. The colony sat on a rich planetary belt with resources that could support human expansion for decades. The Krell wanted it, and Joe was determined they would never get it. The bridge of the Thunderbolt hummed with quiet efficiency. To his left, First Officer Yuna Kim worked her console, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. She had been with him for 3 years, and Joe trusted her more than anyone in the universe. Her dark eyes were focused, calculating. "Status report," Joe said, his voice calm and steady. Yuna looked up. "All systems at maximum readiness, Captain. Quantum fold weapons are charged and calibrated. Defensive shields are at 98% capacity. We're as ready as we'll ever be." The Thunderbolt was unlike any other human warship. It was a prototype, packed with experimental technology that most people hadn't even heard about. Most naval commanders would have requested backup. Most would have said fighting 1,000 ships was suicide. Joe was not most commanders. He thought about his team, 47 men and women who had trained together, lived together, and were now prepared to potentially die together. Each was handpicked, each was exceptional. From the youngest technician to the most senior officer, they represented the best humanity could offer. The ship's AI, which they simply called ERA, spoke softly. "Captain, incoming long-range scans are detecting initial Krell fleet movements. Estimated time to contact, 47 minutes. Joe nodded. 47 minutes. Less time than the number of crew members on his ship. The irony wasn't lost on him. He stood up and walked to the large viewing window. Space stretched out before him, endless and cold. Somewhere out there, 1,000 alien ships were racing towards them. Somewhere out there, 2 million colonists were waiting, hoping, praying that the Thunderbolt would stop the invasion. "Crew," he said, pressing the ship-wide communication button, "prepare for engagement." The bridge became absolutely still. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone understood the stakes. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the massive battle about to unfold. They had seen countless conflicts before. They would see countless more after this. Joe Park took a deep breath. The calm was ending. The storm was about to begin. The holographic display flickered to life, painting the bridge in shades of blue and red. Yuna Kim's fingers moved rapidly, pulling up detailed scans of the approaching Krell fleet. The numbers were terrifying. 1,000 ships, she said quietly. "Confirmed, Captain." Joe Park studied the display. Each red dot represented a Krell warship. They came in different sizes, some as small as attack fighters, others massive enough to swallow the Thunderbolt whole. The fleet stretched across multiple light years, a sea of crimson against the black of space. "Break it down," Joe commanded. Yuna took a deep breath. Composition analysis complete. "We're looking at 600 medium-class assault ships, 250 heavy cruisers, 100 command vessels, and 50 dreadnought-class ships. Each one is heavily armed and designed for total destruction." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. Mathematically, statistically, scientifically, they were already dead. ERA, the ship's AI, spoke up. Its voice was calm, almost clinical. "Probability of survival, 0, 37%. Margin of error, negligible. A young technician named Miho muttered something under his breath. Joe heard it anyway. We're going to die. The captain turned, his eyes scanning the faces of his crew. Young, old, nervous, determined, but all human. No, he said firmly. We're going to fight. He walked to the center of the bridge, standing where everyone could see him. The Thunderbolt might be experimental, but its crew was its real weapon. Joe knew this. The Krell think numbers win battles, he began. His voice was steady, almost conversational. They believe overwhelming force is the only path to victory. But they've never fought humans before. Yuna pulled up the ship's technical specifications. The Thunderbolt looked small compared to the incoming fleet. It was sleek, with sharp lines that seemed to cut through space itself. Experimental quantum fold weapons lined its hull, technology so advanced most humans didn't even understand how it worked. Our ship is more than metal and weapons, Joe continued. We are adaptability. We are innovation. Every time someone has told humanity something is impossible, we've turned around and done it anyway. The crew began to straighten. Shoulders squared, eyes brightened. Era projected tactical simulations, impossible maneuvers, crazy strategies that defied traditional warfare. Each scenario showed the Thunderbolt weaving through impossible positions, striking with precision that seemed more like magic than science. They outnumber us, Joe said, but we outthink them. Yuna highlighted a critical point. The Krell fleet would reach New Hope's orbital zone in exactly 36 minutes. 36 minutes to save 2 million people. 36 minutes to prove that one human ship could change everything. Prepare quantum fold weapons, Joe ordered. All systems to maximum. The ship hummed. Energy crackled. Something impossible was about to happen, and the Krell had no idea what was coming. The first Krell ships appeared like a swarm of angry insects, massive, overwhelming, deadly. Their communication came instantly, a deep grinding sound that filled every speaker on the Thunderbolt's bridge. Yuna translated the alien message on the main screen. Human vessels surrender immediately. Colony will be seized. Resistance is futile. Captain Joe Park didn't even blink. Response, he said simply. Yuna's fingers danced across her console. Instead of words, she sent a single mathematical equation, a complex quantum calculation that would make most computers overheat just trying to process it. The Krell went silent. They're confused, Miho said from the sensor station. His voice held a hint of excitement. They've never seen a response like that before. Era's voice cut through the tension. Incoming weapon signatures detected. Multiple targeting systems preparing to fire. The first wave of Krell ships moved. They weren't subtle. They weren't smart. They were simply massive and numerous. Like a cloud of metal and destruction, they rushed towards the Thunderbolt. Joe watched, waited. Quantum fold weapons, he said calmly. Target sequence Alpha 9. The Thunderbolt moved, but not in any way the Krell understood. It seemed to bend, to twist, to exist in multiple places at once. The ship's experimental technology wasn't just a weapon. It was science that looked like magic. The first explosion happened almost quietly. One moment, a cluster of Krell ships existed. The next, they simply weren't there anymore. No debris, no warning, just empty space where 50 ships had been moments before. Direct hit, Yuna reported. Her voice was calm, professional, but her eyes were wide. The Krell fleet hesitated. For the first time in their long, violent history, they hesitated. They're recalculating, Miho said. Our attack doesn't match any known combat algorithm. Joe smiled. Humans were good at that, breaking algorithms, changing the rules, doing the impossible. More Krell ships moved forward, but now they were careful, watching, trying to understand this strange human ship that could make 50 ships vanish with a single attack. ERA projected tactical information. The quantum fold weapons worked by creating microdimensional folds in space. Basically, the Thunderbolt could make sections of space simply disappear. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Second wave incoming, Una warned. Target sequence Beta 3, Joe ordered. Again, the impossible happened. Ships folded, vanished. The Krell communication channels erupted in what could only be described as panic. They had come expecting an easy victory, a simple invasion, a helpless human colony. They found something else entirely. The Thunderbolt continued its dance, twisting, folding, striking, disappearing. And the battle had only just begun. The Krell were learning, and they were learning fast. Their next wave of attacks came differently. No longer charging blindly, they spread out, tried to surround the Thunderbolt, create impossible angles of attack. They're adapting, Una said, her fingers moving quickly across her console. Changing attack patterns to counter our quantum fold technology, Captain. Joe watched the holographic display. Hundreds of red dots moved like a living thing, intelligent, calculating. The Krell weren't just soldiers. They were a collective intelligence, learning with each lost ship. ERA's voice cut through the tension. Detecting new communication protocols. Krell fleet is sharing tactical information in real time. Miho looked up from his station. They're talking to each other, sharing what they've learned about us. Joe nodded. So are we. The bridge of the Thunderbolt was a machine of its own. Every crew member processed information, shared insights, adapted faster than the computers could calculate. Una pulled up a complex diagram. Look, she said. They're trying to create interference patterns to disrupt our quantum fold weapons. The ship moved, not just with engines, but with something more. The quantum fold technology allowed the Thunderbolt to exist in multiple potential spaces at once. It wasn't just moving. It was probability made real. A group of Krell ships tried to trap them, surrounded on all sides, but the Thunderbolt wasn't where they thought it was. Or maybe it was everywhere at once. Target sequence Gamma 2, Joe commanded. 30 Krell ships simply vanished. No explosion, no warning, just gone. The Krell communication channels went crazy. Panic, confusion, something humans would recognize as fear. They don't understand, Miho said quietly. They can't understand how we're doing this. ERA displayed a constant stream of tactical information, probability calculations, potential attack vectors. The AI was learning too, faster than the Krell, faster than any computer should be able to learn. Una noticed something interesting. Captain, she said, the Krell are starting to avoid certain spatial regions. They're developing a kind of quantum fear. Joe smiled. Humans were good at psychological warfare, even against an alien race that had conquered dozens of star systems. The Thunderbolt continued its impossible dance, twisting through space, striking, disappearing, reappearing somewhere else entirely. Another wave of Krell ships approached, but this time they moved slower, more carefully. The fearless invasion was becoming a careful retreat. They're wondering, Joe said softly, if they've made a mistake. And the battle continued. One human ship against 1,000. The odds impossible, the outcome anything but certain. The ship shook. Alarms screamed. Captain Joe gripped his command chair as sparks flew from a nearby console. They had been fighting for hours. The Thunderbolt was taking damage. Shields down to 37%, Una reported. Her voice was tight but controlled. Quantum fold weapon matrix is becoming unstable. They had destroyed nearly 400 Krell ships, but the cost was high. The Thunderbolt looked nothing like the sleek vessel that had started this battle. Scorch marks covered its hull, internal systems were failing. Miho looked up from his damaged console. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer." The bridge was a mess of broken equipment and tired faces, but no one was giving up. "Not yet." Era's voice sounded different, stressed. "Warning, critical system failure imminent in Sector 7. Quantum fold weapon efficiency dropping." Joe knew what that meant. Their biggest weapon was dying. The thing that had kept them alive was about to fail. "Show me," he commanded. A holographic display flickered. It showed the remaining Krell fleet, still over 600 ships strong. They had learned. They had adapted. And now they were pressing their advantage. "We need something crazy," Yuna muttered. Joe looked at her. Then he smiled. Crazy was exactly what humans did best. "Era," he said, "prepare emergency protocol Omega-9. The AI was silent for a moment. "Captain, that protocol has a 94.7% chance of total ship destruction." "I know," Joe replied. The crew looked at him. They understood what he was suggesting, a last-ditch effort that might save the colony, or destroy everything. Yuna's fingers flew across her console. "If we route all remaining power to the quantum fold matrix and create a cascading dimensional fold, we might." "Might what?" Miho asked. "Might create a spacetime disruption large enough to eliminate the entire remaining Krell fleet," she finished. The bridge went quiet. This wasn't just a battle anymore. This was survival. Outside, Krell ships closed in. They could taste victory. One damaged human ship, hundreds of their own vessels. The math was simple. But math didn't know humans. "Prepare for emergency protocol," Joe ordered. The Thunderbolt's remaining systems began to pulse. Energy built up. Something was happening. Something impossible. The Krell stopped their attack. For the first time, they looked afraid. Joe looked at his crew. Yuna, Miho, the others. 47 people who had become a family. "Whatever happens," he said, "we fight together." The ship began to change, to twist, to become something else entirely. And the Krell had no idea what was coming next. Something was happening to the Thunderbolt. The ship began to vibrate, not with damage, not with weakness, but with pure, raw energy. "Captain," Era said, "quantum fold matrix is entering an unknown state." Joe watched as the ship's hull started to shimmer. It looked like the vessel was becoming transparent. No, more than transparent. It was becoming something else entirely. Yuna's hands moved across her console. Her eyes were wide. "The quantum calculations, they're beyond anything we've ever seen." The Krell fleet stopped moving. Hundreds of ships just froze. Their sensors couldn't understand what was happening. "We're breaking physics," Miho whispered. And they were. The Thunderbolt wasn't just in one place anymore. It was everywhere and nowhere. Each potential version of the ship existed simultaneously, attacking from impossible angles, striking before the attack was even conceived. "Omega-9 protocol has generated multiple spacetime vectors," Era reported. The AI sounded almost excited. "We are creating potential realities faster than the Krell can process." Joe understood what was happening. They weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the rules of combat. One moment, a group of Krell ships would be intact. The next, they would vanish. Not destroyed, just removed from existence, as if they had never been there in the first place. The Krell communication channels erupted in what could only be described as panic. Their collective intelligence was breaking down, confronted with a method of warfare they could not understand. "We're exploiting quantum uncertainty," Yuna said. Her voice was a mix of scientific wonder and pure excitement. "Every possible attack is happening at the same time." The Thunderbolt moved like a ghost, like a dream, like something that shouldn't be possible. 50 Krell ships disappeared, then 100, then 200. The remaining ships started to retreat, but retreat was impossible because the thunderbolt was everywhere. "We're rewriting probability," Miho said. "We're turning mathematics into a weapon." Era calculated, quantum fold weapon efficiency, 1000% and rising. Margin of error, non-existent. Joe watched the holographic display. The red dots representing Krell ships were vanishing faster than they could be counted. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental challenge to how the universe worked. The Krell had invaded, expecting an easy victory. They found something else entirely, a human ship, 47 people, and a technology that broke every rule they knew. And the battle continued, reality itself becoming a battlefield. Silence fell on the Thunderbolt's bridge. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of something impossible happening. The remaining Krell ships were running, but running was impossible because the Thunderbolt was everywhere. "Tracking 237 Krell vessels," Yuna said. Her voice was calm, professional, but something else was there. Wonder. Joe watched the holographic display. Red dots representing Krell ships moved erratically, no longer a coordinated fleet, just panic. Era spoke, "Krell command structure has collapsed. Communication networks are fragmenting." Miho looked up from his console. "They're breaking," he said. "Their entire collective intelligence is falling apart." The Thunderbolt appeared to be in multiple places at once. One moment near a cluster of Krell ships, the next somewhere else entirely, attacking from directions that shouldn't exist. "Quantum fold weapon is operating beyond predicted parameters," Yuna reported. "We're generating potential realities faster than the Krell can comprehend." Joe understood what was happening. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental challenge to how the universe worked. The ship moved like something between a weapon and a living thing. Each potential version of the Thunderbolt existed simultaneously, attacking, defending, existing in ways that broke every known rule of physics. Krell ships started to vanish, not destroyed, just removed. 100 ships gone, then 200. The remaining fleet began to scatter. "They're running," Miho said, disbelief clear in his voice. Yuna checked the calculations. "Quantum fold weapon efficiency is beyond anything we've ever seen. We're generating multiple attack vectors simultaneously." The Krell had come expecting an easy victory, a simple invasion of a human colony. They found something else entirely. Era's voice cut through the tension. "Recommended action, continued pursuit and elimination of remaining Krell vessels." Joe made a decision. "Negative," he said. "Let them go." The bridge looked at him. "They'll tell others," Joe explained. "They'll spread the story about the human ship that broke every rule of warfare. More than a battle was ending. A message was being sent. Humanity was here, and humanity was something entirely different." The Thunderbolt continued its impossible dance, twisting through space, existing in ways nothing should exist. And the story of this battle would be told for generations. The Thunderbolt drifted, damaged, broken, but alive. Captain Joe Park sat in his command chair. The bridge was quiet. The impossible had happened. One ship, 47 people, 1,000 enemy vessels destroyed. Yuna began running system checks. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully. The ship was barely holding together. "Quantum fold weapon matrix," she said, "is something we don't understand." Era projected multiple holographic displays. Each one showed different readings, different potential realities that had existed during the battle. "The weapon," the AI explained, "is not just a weapon. It's a fundamental rewrite of spatial understanding." Miho looked at the data. "We broke physics," he said quietly. The ship's logs were impossible to read. Normal recording systems couldn't capture what had happened. Moments of the battle existed in multiple states simultaneously. Recordings showed the Thunderbolt in different positions, doing different things, all at the same time. Joe understood something important. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a new way of thinking about reality. Status of New Hope Colony, he asked. Era responded immediately. Colony is safe. 0 casualties. Complete protection maintained. The crew looked at each other. They had done the impossible. Una found something strange in the ship's logs. Captain, she said, our quantum-fold weapon didn't just attack the Krell ships. It changed them. The holographic display showed bizarre readings. Krell ships that had been removed from existence, but not destroyed. Something else entirely. We didn't kill them, Miho realized. We relocated them somewhere else. Some other reality. Joe smiled. Humans were good at finding solutions that no one else could see. The ship's damage was extensive, but they were alive. The crew was alive. The colony was safe. Era began preparing the initial report, but how do you report something that breaks every known rule of science? Recommendation, the AI said. Classify most battle data. Current human technology cannot explain what occurred. The Thunderbolt continued to drift, a testament to human innovation, to the ability to do the impossible. 1,000 ships, 47 humans, and a weapon that rewrote the rules of the universe. Outside, space looked the same as it always had. Silent, endless, waiting. But everything had changed. The galaxy changed that day. News traveled fast. 1 human ship, 1,000 alien vessels, complete victory. Human command received the first reports. They couldn't believe it. The Thunderbolt's logs were impossible to understand. Scientists worked around the clock, trying to make sense of the quantum-fold weapon. It's not just a weapon, one researcher said. It's a new way of understanding reality. On Earth, people celebrated. The story spread quickly. A single ship, 47 brave people. They had done something no one thought possible. The Krell were different now. Their collective intelligence had been fundamentally changed. Reports came in from multiple star systems. Krell ships were avoiding human territories. They were afraid, not of humans, but of what humans could do. Captain Joe Park became something of a legend. His face appeared on news channels. Military academies studied his tactics. But he remained the same, quiet, focused. The Thunderbolt underwent months of study. Scientists couldn't explain its quantum-fold technology. Every time they thought they understood something, new mysteries appeared. Era, the ship's AI, became a subject of intense research. It had done something no AI had ever done before. It had helped create a weapon that rewrote the rules of physics. Miho and Una were promoted, but they knew the truth. They had been part of something bigger than themselves. The New Hope colony flourished, protected by the reputation of the Thunderbolt. No one would dare attack them now. Months passed, then years. The story became legend, then myth, then something more. Humans looked to the stars differently now. They weren't just explorers. They were something else, creators of impossible things, breakers of known rules. The quantum-fold weapon remained a secret, too dangerous, too powerful, but its existence changed everything. Other alien races watched. They remembered the story of the Thunderbolt. 1 ship, 47 people, 1,000 enemy vessels simply gone. Joe knew the truth. This was just the beginning. Humanity had discovered something, a way of thinking, a way of fighting, a way of existing that no one had imagined before. The universe got a little bigger that day, a little stranger. And humans? They were just getting started.